Hi, I'm Effie. This is What Effie Reads, and today we are going to be looking back on my last These Books Will Self-Destruct in 12 Months video. So at the start of this year, I made a video which I believe it was called These Books Will Self-Destruct in 11 months. But anyway, I set out a list of books that I'd given myself a set period of time and I had to read them within that time because at the end of the year, I was going to be getting rid of them. So the purpose of today's video is to look back over all the books that I picked out in that video and see if I had read them. So first things first, I'm going to run through all of the books on the list that I didn't get to, and I'm not going to spend too much time saying why I didn't get to them because frankly I just didn't end up reaching for them. So the books on that list are There's a Last Family in England by Matt Haig, Wool by Hugh Howey, A Rising Man by Abhijit Mukherjee, and the sequel, neither of them I got to, Rogue by Rachel Vincent, Modern Nature by Derek Jarman, Red Dirt by E.M. Reapy, My Beautiful Struggle by Jordan Bone, The Leaving by Tara Altebrando, The Girl Who Lied by Sue Fortin, Mrs. De Winter by Susan Hill, 13 Little Blue Envelopes by Maureen Johnson, The First 15 Lives of Harry August by Claire North, Angel Time by Anne Rice, and finally 6-4 by Hideo Yokoyama. And then we get on to the considerably smaller pile of books that were on my self-destruct list that I actually ended up reading, or at least partially reading in the case of one of them. So I can kind of like tick it off my list. So in no particular order, we have Witches Steeped in Gold by Shannon Smart. I just didn't enjoy this one, unfortunately. I think I found the magic system to be a little confusing. Like, it was meant to be two different magic systems, but they were also way too similar. I also just didn't like the dynamics between the characters, but I am still intrigued in the sequel. I'm just going to keep an eye out for it being on Scrubbed, because the only way I was able to make my way through this book was by hybrid reading, so there's literally no point in me picking up a physical or ebook copy of the sequel. Never Evers by Tom Ellen and Lucy Iverson. I went into this book thinking it was going to be kind of The Prince and the Pauper-esque, and it wasn't. And I'm not sure, if you look at the I'll pop the blurb on screen once I say the next bit. Like, I'm not sure if it was just that, like, I took something from the blurb that wasn't there, but it wasn't what I wanted. And at the end of the day, this skewed very, very young way, possibly even middle grade, so did not get any enjoyment out of it. The School for Good and Evil by Soman Chinani. I didn't vibe with it. There were way too many twists and turns to the point that, like, I couldn't even start to tell you how it all shook out in the end. And, like, in a number of ways, it was sort of predictable and it felt kind of overwritten. I think at the end of the day as well, it probably is the younger end of YA, which probably didn't help my enjoyment. This is not to say that I don't read the younger end of YA, and I definitely read middle grade. Just the kind of story this is, I don't get much enjoyment out of that age bracket. Girl Unknown by Karen Perry. I think I made a something ridiculous like 86 pages into this book. Like, I really gave it a good try, but I just hated it so much. I mean, it didn't help that very early on in the book, you had a character basically saying that the very worst thing that could happen to a man was to be accused of sexual harassment or SA or something like that. And I'm just going, like, I get you're meant to be unlikable, but like that's the extreme. Also, like, you know from the blurb that this mysterious girl in the professor's life is his daughter. And yeah, I think from page 1, he's kind of like objectifying her. Let's see. I can't immediately pick out a passage, but it was just very much giving me the ick because he seemed to be very much liking her. So basically, once I got to the 86 page mark, like, I was invested in the story. I just didn't want to keep reading it and didn't want to follow these characters for another 300. Yeah, it's like almost 400 pages for another 300 pages. So I tried to go on Goodreads to get spoiler reviews. A lot of people seem to really enjoy this. But there was also a number of them that essentially said this book got good in like the final portion of it. So I then just skipped to the end, and I'm going to put a spoiler warning on screen now. I was so glad that I hadn't read the middle portion of this book, because essentially it ends up like really weirdly incesty. Like, okay, these characters are feeling like they're not sure if she's actually the daughter or not. But regardless, I think both the father and her half brother end up like making out with her, and that's why I think she gets murdered, or maybe it's the father. Someone ends up dead, and it gets revealed that that person is dead because the daughter, but not the daughter that comes into the professor's life, like his nuclear family daughter, had seen the kissing and decided that someone needed to die. So yeah, incesty and just creepy. It wasn't for me. But as my friend and I say, a DNF is a valid rating. I love it. Like, she designed this one and I designed this one, and I just think they're so cute. But yeah, a DNF is a valid rating, and yep, a DNF is very much how I would rate this. So I've got 2 more books that I don't have the physical copies. I think one because it's like buried in my shelves, and the other one because I think it's in my like hallway Unhaul pile. So the last physical book I've got, and I'll be honest, this one hurts to get rid of because it is one of the first books that my best friend ever bought for me. But it is The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. I don't know. I have somewhat mixed feelings about this. Like, I think overall I didn't enjoy it. Like, it was an interesting enough concept, and then the reveal at the end, I cannot remember what I'd read at a similar time, but or possibly like watched. But essentially, I'd consumed something that had a very similar like concept to the like final twist around the time that I read this book, and the other thing did it so much better. And the other problem I had with this is that the core story is that our main character wakes up inside a different guest at this party every day. But the problem is they like encounter those guests on different days as well, and it essentially becomes very confusing to differentiate the main character from the other characters within the story, and it just left me feeling really honestly quite baffled. So yeah, not my cup of tea, unfortunately. But in some ways, I'm kind of vindicated because my best friend who gave me this, Shannon, she also hated this with a fiery passion, to the extent that her copy she uses for blackout poetry now, which I think is a really great idea. So the two books that I don't physically have to hand right now are Black Whiskers River Pirate by John Williams. I have no idea what the intended age group for that book was, but I didn't enjoy it. Thankfully, it was really, really thin, but yeah, definitely not my cup of tea. Really disliked it. And the other book is Northern Lights. And for Northern Lights, I'm making an exception, and I am not going to unhaul it today. Part of that is because I've had my set for so long, and part of that is that I only read Northern Lights. I haven't read the book 2 and 3, so I want to keep the full set until I've finished out the series. I also think that B really likes Northern Lights, so he probably would want to keep the set even if I didn't, which is perfectly fair. Like, B gets essentially like veto power on if I want to unhaul books that like he genuinely wants to keep. In terms of what I thought of the story, I enjoyed it more than I expected. Like, it didn't wow me, and it's not going to be my favourite book of the year, but I definitely got a lot more enjoyment out of it than I expected, and I am wanting to continue the series, and maybe I'll read it next year, who knows. And that's all I have for you today. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I mean, I would say let me know if I'm making any mistakes getting rid of these, but they're already essentially gone. They are on my Depop, and anyone that wants them can obviously purchase them, and I'm sure they'll have a much happier home than here, because clearly these books just aren't for me. So until next time, love you. Bye.